Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session number 4 of the D&D 5e Eberron campaign, titled "It Belongs in a Museum." I am your dungeon master, Ralph, at Cthulhu on Twitter. That is CRITTHULHU, and I'll throw it over to Al to introduce himself.
Everybody, this is Big Al the Lawyer on Twitter, at Big Al the Lawyer, and I will be playing Talion Tildavandi, as I've played him for the first 3 sessions as well.
My name is Michael from the RPG Academy podcast. I am playing a ghost, a warforged that's dwarven modeled-ish, who's very inquisitive.
You want to go first? I'm Jules. I will be playing Azure, the Dragonborn Sorceress.
And Andy at Blackfall Press on Facebook and Twitter, playing Gideon Blacklake, a Carnathi human fighter.
All right, perfect then. When we last left our heroes, we took a few weeks off there for conflicting schedules and illnesses, but when we last left our heroes several weeks ago, they were aboard a lightning rail train from the city of Kornberg to the city of Sharn, the Spire Express, as it is called. They're transporting a relic that seems to be at the center of some goblinoid interest, and they are transporting it from where it was on display in a pseudo museum in Kornberg to Sharn at the request of a member of the Trust, the secret intelligence, no, I guess not so secret intelligence organ of the Zalargo government. You guys had repelled an attack by a group of bugbears. A pretty rare occurrence from what you've gleaned, speaking with the train staff and other passengers. Perhaps it was aimed at gaining the prize that you all are carrying, or perhaps it's just entirely coincidental. That seems unlikely, but nonetheless,
More hobgoblin-ish type or goblinoid type attack at this point.
yeah.
Pretty sure I know that's drawing the goblins.
Yeah, and what is drawing the goblins more specifically is a ruby that has been called the Heart of the Seawall. A ruby that seems capable of summoning some sort of spectral hobgoblin warriors. The exact level of its enchantment is a little bit unknown at this point. But all that being said, in addition to all of this the high adventure and defending this relic, there was also a card tournament taking place. A game of Three Dragon Ante organized by a group of underground gamblers. And this tournament is known as the Unicorn's Run. A couple of you have entered into the Unicorn's Run, taking seats at tables and gambling there. So we left off specifically at the end of the night. The train had stopped in Zollenberg, taken on cargo. No additional passengers. Nobody got off here. Talion, you used this opportunity to visit a Civis Echo station, and send word back to Codger, because he had given you his address basically for those types of communications. So we'll pick up there. You guys have rested for an evening, so you all can regain hit points and any expended abilities. A ghost, since you have the sentry's rest, I'm assuming, are you just kind of posted up near the window, just staring out at the countryside as you trans?
Yeah, I think before last time I probably would have been faced like the doorway, thinking someone from the train might come in. But after our attack, I think I would be more focused on an external threat. So yeah, I'll be basically looking out the window as the world goes by.
Yeah. And you guys were actually given 2 sleeper cars in passenger car A that have 2 bunks in each. So in theory, I mean, since the Warforged doesn't really need a bed, 3 of you could cram into one room, and one of you could take the other. What do we think the bunking scenario is?
I'm probably gonna guess it's gonna be me and a ghost.
Okay, that makes sense.
It fits Gideon's outlook to like keep Ghost on a short leash, so to speak.
Okay.
We need to find some way for maybe like a tensor's floating disc so that I can sit on and just rotate it slowly. So that I'm on watch. I have a 360-degree.
Yeah. Perfect.
I don't know how we could do that, but I'm going to work on it.
Well, so let's just say you watch throughout the night as the terrain gets less mountainous. You guys are kind of descending from the altitude at Zollenberg, and Zollenberg is more of like the Zalargo mining city. And it does kind of, you actually stay along the seawall mountains, but the train comes down a bit, and as it proceeds to Stern Gate, which is kind of the last stop in Zalargo. So you watch the train get a little less mountainous, a little more hilly, and then it eventually does kind of curve back towards the mountains by the end of that run. And let's just say your cabin faces the platform side. So you're probably the only person that's particularly conscious at this train makes its arrival in Stern Gate at like 5 or 6 in the morning. Is anybody else a particularly early riser? Maybe the military man?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Always the first one awake. Probably, I don't want to say upset, but probably a little miffed that like this is not big enough to do calisthenics this morning. Looks like we're skipping arm day.
Well then, I'll say a ghost definitely notices it, and Gideon, he may relay this information to you, but a ghost, you see that the elderly halfling woman who was kind of seated in the passenger car the day earlier, or the sitting car rather I should say, she exits leading on like not actually even leading on a leash, but trailing behind her, kind of stooped over its neck, almost dragging its head on the ground. It's just the sagging like dinosaur that she had with her, looked like a sad sack of bones, maybe having lived beyond its normal number of years in the wild or whatever. But they depart at Stern Gate. Other than that, you could see a couple of members of the Zalargo military do get on board. There are a total of 4 gnomish soldiers. These guys are a bit of a rarity. Like, even in Korenberg, there isn't a proper city watch per se, but obviously there is still a military that is maintained by Zalargo. It's just
A joke.
maybe by Karnathi's standards, a joke, yes. It's definitely...
It's hard to field an infantry regiment when you can hold them at arm's length.
Or it's a little bit like Switzerland, where they have mandatory military service or whatever, but they're never going to need it. They're going to win things diplomatically, not on the field of battle. Regardless, it seems like some security has been attached to the train, perhaps for the remainder of the trip, or perhaps until you guys have properly exited Zalargo. That remains to be seen. But you can see just some basic unloading of cargo happens. These passengers disembark, the guards embark. You can hear commotion kind of in your passenger car, so it looks like they're given sleeper cabins near you. And unless any of the other 2 of you are particularly early risers, you might have missed Stern Gate entirely. Not that there's anything necessarily to do in Stern Gate, but...
The Italian's probably nursing a bit of a hangover from the extra drink vouchers, so yeah, he's not getting up.
I am snoring away. Friends of lucky here and there.
A ghost, join me for breakfast.
I would be delighted.
Awesome. So yeah,
gesture towards the dining car.
Yeah, you guys head back through the sitting car and through the first class cabins on your way back to the dining car, and you're getting the freshest breakfast. So so your eggs are the freshest eggs, and your bacon's the first one off the pan in the morning.
Awesome.
For
the first cup off the coffee pot.
Exactly. That being said, the train departs Stern Gate in relatively short order after that bit of a bustle of activity. And you would know from the description of your train schedule that this means that you are about 12 to 13 hours away from Star Alaska, the next stop. The rest of you kind of come to at your desired times. And the train is kind of yours to move about. I will say, Talion, actually, there comes a knock at your door at a reasonable hour. So that might wake you as well, Azure, if you guys are bunking together. But one of the stewards has two messages for you. They tell you that at the Echo station in Stern Gate, attached to the station, there were these two missives provided, and you can see that they are sealed with like House Civis, like wax seals, basically. So you know that they were dictated, recorded, and relayed to you without the steward getting into them. But yeah, you have two letters to peruse.
We'll definitely peruse those letters.
Okay. I'm going to read you the contents of the first one. I'm assuming this is information that you would share with the group, so everybody can tune into this as well, assuming that Talion's going to tell you at a later date. I
suppose you can assume it. I mean,
okay, everybody else log off the call. This is too much.
Breakout room.
We'll see. After when I get to the end, Talion, you could decide. You could tell them whether or not they're metagaming. Okay. And while you're perusing this, I'll get an investigation check from you as well.
We can do that. It's a 7.
Okay, so this might take you a while to piece together what this letter is getting at, but
I'm hungover. I mean, it's
it reads, "Dearest, I've heard that there was more excitement than expected on your trip, and I hope you and your friends kept safe. Your Uncle V is still not himself. We've asked the best clerics in Kornberg to take a look at his condition and try to remedy him, but they have been without success. I'm told they've never seen an affliction like this so resistant to their skills. I am certain something can be done, and we will continue to search for assistance with this. I do have some good news, however. I have spoken to an old friend and wrote, and I've arranged a sort of blind date for you. A gentleman will board the train at that stop wearing a Carnathi grave lily pinned upon their lapel. I have heard tell that he is dreadfully shy, though, so don't begrudge him if he makes small talk at first. If he says something about the weather, I'm sure you will say something smart-alecky about the rain and storm reach. But fortunately for us, I'm told he has a sense of humor. Do write and let me know how this meeting goes. There will be a sky coach driver waiting at Terminus for you. They have your name. May the rest of your travels be safe." And it is actually unsigned. So again, with a 7 investigation, you probably read that first sentence a few times, and then eventually it dawns on you this has to be from Kadja, right? What is he getting at? And you stare at it and make of it what you will. Is that in general information that you're going to share with the party, most likely?
I am. In fact, before I put the pieces together, I'm going to kind of ask everybody if anybody else has an Uncle V, because it just doesn't ring a bell for me. Maybe this was actually supposed to go to somebody else.
Yeah. Oh, man, House Civis doesn't make mistakes. How dare you? The other letter, this may be something you don't share with the party, but nonetheless, it's Talion. I've heard your assignment for the library has taken on importance for another fine institution in our city. Do what it is you do best, and I'm sure you'll curry favor that will benefit the house. Of course, if there is anything that you feel conflicts our best interests, let me know, and I will have the house advise or intercede on your behalf. And this one is actually signed by your father. Your father is alive, I imagine. I don't know his name, but I will write it down as soon as you tell it to me.
I would just like to call him Father.
Okay. It says father.
Who could this be from?
Yeah, with your 7 investigation.
Does anybody else know? Does anybody else have a father? I don't.
No family.
Well, nonetheless, that may be information you don't necessarily feel inclined to share with the group, but
That would probably stay with me. That seems at least semi-personal. That's how I would take it. That's how Talion takes it. It's semi-personal.
yeah, that's perfectly fine. It's your family. It's your pseudo-governmental entity or whatever. But nonetheless, you guys kind of emerge. You group up perhaps in the dining car, or perhaps you guys grab a quick breakfast and meet them in the sitting car, depending how much you've slept in. But you are all in short order together, and I believe Talion shares the contents of the first letter around. If anybody wants to help him fill in the blanks, obviously you could draw some pretty obvious conclusions from it, but if you want to make an investigation check, there may be more nuance that you pull from it, if anybody wants to take a discerning read.
11.
What a whack, I guess. 16? Investigation, right?
Yeah, definitely. Gideon, it occurs to you quicker than perhaps it occurred to Talion that this is definitely a coded message, and this is from Codger. You would say that Uncle V probably refers to Verdon Top, the gentleman who you all know was petrified in the library at Kornberg. With a 16 in Azure, whether or not you feel like you want to share this insight, you know, like it's well established that that House Civis maintains confidentiality about the contents of messages, and it may just be in the trust nature to always communicate in code regardless. But you just maybe find it interesting that this was communicated in code through House Civis, as if maybe House Civis wasn't trusted to keep this confidential, or maybe it has something to do specifically with the Echo Station at Sterngate, or maybe it just has to do with Echo Stations outside of the capital or something. But it maybe just strikes you as a little odd.
Yeah.
But you also pulled the same details, and you think that the last paragraph is referring to like a passphrase of some sort. So when you find this this designated gentleman wearing the Carnathi grave lily, he'll say something about the weather, and somebody will say something about the rain and storm reach, and that will signify to both parties that.
Okay. If I'm reading this, which I'm presuming I just rolled the thing that I have, I make sure everyone knows what a Carnathi grave lily looks like.
That'd be good. Yeah.
That way, there are no mistakes. That's like, oh, that's Sharneth Sharneth Broadleaf or something like that. Yeah. It's no.
I feel like, is this like a Brazil Nuts situation? Like, does everybody call them Carnathi grave lilies and you just call them lilies? I don't know. No, you do describe it though. It is like it's like a pale white, like kind of like maybe like the color of like a bone meal or something. Actually, make a history check. I want to see if
I'm actually good at history. Not that good. 7?
The history of plants is boring. They live, they die.
I've probably seen them a lot at funerals.
Yeah,
but that's
perhaps.
I think that a ghost is well trained at investigation, which I've already established. But I feel like this is something that wouldn't, like, I just don't think the nuance of like this sort of half-coded message. I think he would read it completely on the surface, so I'm not. That's why I'm not even rolling here. I don't think I would be of any help.
Yeah.
I do think Talion, with his diplomacy, would be well versed in history, and I rolled a 20. So, what can you tell me about this bad boy?
The Carnathi Grave Lily. It is like a, so as I said before, it's a like a pale white, kind of like bone meal color. There's a superstition in Karn about raising the dead of an individual who has grave lilies blossoming over their tombstone or their monument. It's considered taboo to do so. But also they're a very temperamental flower, and they tend to kind of wilt and wither from the center working out. Just like a creeping blackness that overtakes the white as the flower droops and rots, basically.
So reanimating the dead flesh, fine, as long as there's not a flower.
When in Karn, do as the Carnathi do.
That's right. That's right.
In Soviet Karnath, flowers scare you.
Precisely. But nonetheless, there's a couple of other individuals kind of populating the sitting car. Conspicuously, Worfgar, the dwarf that you have pickpocketed, is absent. Or maybe not conspicuously. You could see that the Siren refugee family is there, mother and father with their 2 children. Menace is in the sitting car, the Warforged that you guys had kind of fought alongside. Eventually, Quisbar comes in and announces to those of you interested, and he kind of like looks specifically at a ghost in Azure. To those of you who are participating in the Unicorns run, of course, the games will resume this afternoon after lunch. They will be concluded by the time we reach Starlasker, when the champion boards and the 3 chip leaders will take their seats at the champion's table. Just as a recap, you guys were both doing very well after the first round. You guys are kind of sitting in second place at your respective tables. If you remember, one table was designated for the metallics and the other for the chromatics. So actually taking a quick look at that, you actually, like, you maybe when you got back to your room, or perhaps even at the table, a ghost, since you're not familiar with these taboos, you've counted your tokens. You've counted your chips. And Azure, you have 22. If you remember, you started with 20. But as much of this game is about winning from others as it is defending your own horde. So to be up and to be in second place is a good start. And a ghost, you're sitting at about 23. So you're doing maybe slightly better, although, you know.
You're being outplayed by a 2-year-old.
Fortunately, you guys are at 2 separate tables. And we can resolve the next round of that after lunch, as I said. So Quisbar makes this announcement. You can see that he's kind of moving through the passenger cars and belting this out to all of the interested card players.
So if I remember correctly, there was some thought that maybe someone at the other table, not mine, might have been cheating.
It was actually at your table.
Oh, it was at my table.
Yes, the halfling is seated at your table. And he is up. He's only maybe a few chips ahead of you. And by the end of this, if the math does not work out, don't worry. It's Casino Royale Hollywood math. But yes, Kern. Kern is actually a Carnathi gentleman himself, slightly older than Gideon, I believe. But he was accusing Foxy, the halfling, by the end of the night.
I have Kern written down. I have Gideon-ish as my description.
Well, there you go. Yes, that is true. And at your table, Azure, you have kind of run afoul of Zan. Yeah. You're playing very charismatically. So you're using like your chromatic dragons to kind of bully others. And you're bluffing and maybe, you know, putting on a show or faking a tell and things like that.
Yeah.
So I think that her read of that, since she is just more of a straightforward analytical player, yeah, you seem to have gotten under her skin a little bit.
Good.
But the next round of the games will determine who sits at the champion's table. Because the champion is boarding at Star Alaska, that means that the last round of the games will actually take place tomorrow evening. The stretch of track between Star Alaska and Rote, which is where you're meeting your contact, is kind of the longest stretch of the trip. That itself takes about a day and then another 10 hours into the next day. So this is the international waters stretch of things, I guess.
I'm going to need more books and more wine.
Well, unless anybody has anything in particular to accomplish, I mean, we can move forward to the next round of the games. I think Talion.
Game.
I would have been asking Talion to try to explain to me the nuance of the hidden message, because it was just completely over a ghost's head. But I'm still not going to get it, no matter how much you explain it. But be like, but no, it says that it was this. So why are you inferring something else?
And Talion will get a little bit annoyed because he wouldn't normally get annoyed, but with the lingering effects of all the extra beverage vouchers, he's just a little bit annoyed at the situation. Remind me, Michael, how were you playing? How was a ghost playing? Azure was playing with charisma. How was a ghost playing?
I'm playing like straight math. Like I've read the books on how this game works, so I'm playing like mathematically correct every time. There's no flair. So whatever the, like, I guess intellect version would
Whatever
be.
the odds say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always tell me the odds. That's what I'm saying. I always tell me those.
So your ability checks would be either wisdom or intelligence, probably then, whatever's higher for
Intelligence, then, yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel some enhanceability perhaps on the horizon, but we'll come to that in a moment. Lunch is served in the dining car. Another standard meal included in your fare.
So I do the thing like actors where I get my food and I move it around, but I never actually eat it. So I like to participate in the social construct of meals.
Yeah. Menace is standing there over Monty's shoulder as he eats and like talking to him, perhaps, or bodyguarding. It's difficult to say, but you can see that Menace is just like looking at you with a warforged expression of confusion. Maybe the eyes just dim a little bit. I don't know.
Someone has painted a charcoal eyebrow raised.
Again, you don't see Wharfcar. There are stewards that kind of ferry back and forth. You don't see Quisbar either. So you think that maybe the people who have private cabins have the option for room service more so than you do. But lunch passes, and as the tables are being cleared away, the stewards are wiping down the tables, and the remainder of the card players are kind of filtering in for an hour or two of gambling, perhaps, to determine who the. Well, I guess, yeah. It's probably going to be several hours of gambling if you're going to play till Star Alaska. I mean, if several people in your table go broke before then, we'll see.
If other people are playing cards, I will be observing them, but I won't participate.
So it just takes a while. I think it takes a while for the gamblers to all kind of trickle in. So probably by the time you're starting, it's more like closer to the late afternoon. That being said, Quisbar calls for a beginning after he arrives in the dining car, and everybody resumes their seats from the previous day. So as you're seated at a table with Laram, Zan, and Brambleclaw, and a ghost. You're seated at a table with Foxy, Kern, and Monty. Talion, as everybody's filing in and taking their positions, is there anything you want to do?
Yes, I'm going to follow a ghost to his seat, and I'm going to kind of talk to him like one last time about, this code and how this code works. And I'm going to be kind of touching him a little bit while I'm doing that. And as he sits down, I'm going to cast enhance ability on him, and that will give him advantage on his intelligence checks for an hour.
Sweet.
Perfect.
Now, of course, I'm completely oblivious to this.
Yeah.
But maybe for a half second, you're like, oh, wait, I almost have the code.
Yeah. Ow.
You tell him that the magic has been in him all along, but that's just the verbal component to your spell that actually puts the magic on him. So yeah, that's perfect. Go ahead and actually, Talion, just make a deception check. I'm assuming you're trying to do this in a low key fashion.
Yes.
I don't think enhance ability is the flashiest spell, but
That'll be a 19.
okay. Yeah, nobody seems any the wiser. The passive perception at the table. You could see that Kern, in particular, is like scrutinizing everyone at the table closely, since he thinks that that Foxy is cheating, but he doesn't seem to even notice what you're up to. So, yeah, all right. Any other last-minute preparations before the first rounds of the gambits?
New book, new bottle, out of line of sight of Karn.
Is there anything like akin to sunglasses that I could like get on the tree?
Put up, iPod on.
Yeah. Do you have minor illusion or prestidigitation? You can create some sort of.
Yeah, unless firebolt would work.
I was gonna say if you want some glasses, just let me know and I'll cast a little minor illusion over your eyes.
There we go. Perfect. You give her some like a mirrored. There is definitely, what is the D&D word for sunglasses? They have them in one of the 3.5 books. Dark glasses, I think.
Yeah, they had it in one of like the Drow source books.
Yeah, it's for the sunlight sensitivity.
Drow wear sunglasses.
Well, they wear sunglasses on the surface.
Because their future is so bright. No.
It eliminates like the darkness or the sunlight penalty they take.
All right. A ghost. We'll start with the chromatics table this go round. Go ahead and make an intelligence check with advantage. This just represents the first several gambits. The first,
Sure. So as everyone sits down, I would, of course, wish everyone at my table good luck, and then I will follow it up with the idea of luck as a construct made by humanoids, and it has no actual measurement, but, societal...
Monty laughs.
Okay, even with advantage, not the best. That puts me at a 17.
All right. I pre-rolled some of these to cut down on time. So Monty laughs at you kind of disparaging luck, and then in the first gambit, you're surprised to see that he has the cards to pull off a strength flight. He has 3 sevens, a 7 blue dragon, a 7 red dragon, and a 7 white dragon. And as you're kind of paying him out for pulling that trick on you, everybody at the table's grumbling, and he says, "There's something to be said for luck, I think." So I will note down the results of that round just real quick. You did do the second best at the table for this particular set of exchange, so you do gain a little bit of ground off of that. And
So I lose to him, but maybe gain from someone else.
yeah, Foxy, you notice that Foxy kind of begins trailing behind. It looks like he's starting off poorly. Make of that what you will. Let's go to the metallics table where Azure is seated. Still playing with charisma? Still not here to make friends?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
All right, roll my charisma. That's only that's a 6. That's yeah, that's good there.
Yeah, you
Talion
do.
kind of curses under his breath. Dang it.
Bet on the wrong horse there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did stake her in this. I forgot.
I did.
Man. Zan is delighted that she has a 15 this round, so she goes up quite a bit. The opening pot was set pretty high for some reason. I think Laram thought he had a good run going, but somebody throws a brass dragon and pulls from his hand, and you could see that he almost throws a fit. It must have thrown off his strategy. But since you had a 6, that means that you're there, and Brambleclaw is actually taking second place on this exchange. Laram doesn't really gain or lose much ground, but since he set the pot so high, Zan is off to a great start in your table. And like I said, this represents like several gambits, which is essentially a round. You guys draw up cards to kind of replenish your hand, rethink your strategies. And then after several gambits, we come to the kind of mid-game. So these next few hands will also be a determining role. Basically, just so you know, there are 3 checks here. Enhance ability lasts an hour, right?
Right.
Okay. So I would say you are, by the time you reach the mid-game, you're kind of pushing the end of that spell, but you'll have it one more time. Talion, I hesitate to remind you, of course, as your dungeon master, you do also have bardic inspiration, I believe, which could help someone with a check if you want to throw that around. But are you executing that, or are we rolling with what we've got?
Yeah, I think I am executing that, especially since I've already devoted some of my energy into a ghost. I'm just gonna kind of go up behind him and clap him hard on his back, which actually hurts my hand.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna be like, "You've got this."
Yeah. His weird glass steel composition just pains your hand a bit. So does he get a D6 to add to his roll if he chooses?
That's right.
All right. Let's go back to that chromatics table with advantage and add a D6.
All right. Together, that's a 21.
That is a very
Ah.
I knew you could do it.
Okay, hang on.
I wonder if I'm smart enough to know that I'm smarter than I should be. Like, where's the line for me to realize that there's some sort of magical enhancement? Like, am I smart enough to realize that I'm not this smart?
That's a really good question.
Are you wise enough to realize you're not that smart?
Ooh.
No,
even
because I have a
better
negative
question.
1 modifier on my wisdom.
There you go. All right.
You always play the odds. The probabilities never lie. Over the short term, there might be fluctuations in success and failure rates, but over the long term, you're always going to see a steady, more smart words.
Well, as you are explaining this to the table, undoubtedly over the course of all this time, Monty starts to lag behind in the mid game a bit, and he kind of is grumbling and gripping his goblet a little tighter, and maybe staring daggers at you, which pretty much everybody else, but perhaps you, might pick up on, because it seems like his luck is kind of failing. The halfling in the mid-game seems to pick up and gains quite a few chips. You can see that he resumes in his first hand. He seemed to play a little bit more calculating. In the second hand, he seems to be back to his old tricks. He keeps throwing black dragons and stealing from the pot, and that seems to be his preferred method of playing. So he just keeps whittling down the pots that he can't win, and just moving the chips over to his hoard. That being said, I'm assuming everybody at the table and everybody in the room is kind of maybe watching him with a little bit more intentionality. But since it's like over such a prolonged period of time, it's still maybe more so your passive perception, because you can't watch him that closely over the course of like a whole hour. You don't see that he's cheating. It seems above board to you. But nonetheless, the halfling luck seems to pick up for him in the mid-game. and we go back to the metallics table. Zan kind of leans over to you, like kind of conspiratorially or whatever, and she says, my behavior yesterday, of course, was unacceptable. It is a pleasure to share the table with you. You can see her demeanor has shifted since she's now winning, perhaps. she's won a couple of decent-sized pots at this point, so.
You can afford to be gracious.
Oh, okay.
Just stare. Just.
Yeah. It's like, okay, like, nice to meet your acquaintance.
All right. Let's go ahead and I'll take your roll whenever you're ready.
Okay. Let's see. Gosh, I switched dice. I got a nat 1.
Oh no!
Oh.
Ah! Not
Things
this
are
round. Ooh.
things are not going well.
Goodbye, Chips. Goodbye.
Chips.
Zan takes another few decently sized pots. You can see that Brambleclaw's game kind of begins to fall apart. Laram is starting to kind of piece things together. But looking down at your little horde, it's dwindling. Looks like some other folks at the table might be a little bit ahead of you at this point. Maybe a lot a bit ahead of you. All right, let's go back to the chromatics table for the last time. So you could see the stewards at this point. It's been a couple of hours, I would say, and you can see that they're anxiously kind of coming in, and Quispar is like assuring them like things will be wrapped up shortly. Don't worry about it. They want to get things ready for the dinner service. But that being said, let's go to the chromatics for the first roll of the last gambit. I would say enhanceability has worn off at this point, Talion. This game has stretched on for maybe close to about like 3 hours at this point. So if you're going to try and get back in there and be his corner man, there are some like lulls in between the gambits where people do get up and refresh their drinks and kind of stretch or whatever. Obviously, the tables are kind of watched closely by Quispar at that point, but
let's see here. Yeah, I'll get over there and give him another little bit of a pat on the back. This time, much more gingerly because I learned my lesson from the first time.
Nice.
And say, we're almost there. We're almost there. You've got this. And we'll cast it one last time.
All right, good to know. Ghost, give me that last check.
So back to advantage, but no bardic inspiration.
Yeah, we'll just do it that way, just in case.
He wants you to work for it a little bit.
Natural 20 and a natural 1. Thank you, sir.
Whoa, advantage.
Good timing.
Yeah.
You see that Monty in the end game is pulling out all of the stops. He floundered a little bit in the mid game. He might just be reliant on luck entirely. But you can see that he does look at you and he does smile at you eventually, and he says, takes all kinds. But with a natural 20, you are going to take the lead in the end game. So I'll do your totals here in just a moment. I just need to figure out who took second. Monty took second in the end game, and last was Kern, who's had a bit of a rough day, it seems.
So I won't talk, smack necessarily, but I will start to comment on, like, in the third hand of the second gambit, when I'll like if they made any mathematical errors in their play, I'll start calling them out, particularly to Kern, who's doing the worst.
Yeah, Kern nods, and but he leans forward to you and he says, if you were to say something like this in the lower levels of Sharn, An ogre would probably take you out back and take a great club to your legs. I would just, I would caution
we're
you.
not in the lower levels of Sharn then.
Yeah, and he says, stay out of the gambling halls near Cogsgate. I don't think he'd last a minute. But nonetheless,
He's doing better than you.
No.
But yeah, I'm not saying it with smack. I'm just saying it like factually.
Everybody shuffles around at that. But unfortunately, the evening is winding down. He just kind of sits back and takes a deep drink of his dark wine. We'll come back over to the metallics table for one last check, Asher.
Right. Come on, third dice. Let's see if this does it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not horrible. 14?
It is not horrible. It is enough to... You get a little bit outmaneuvered by Laram in the end game, but you do manage to net a little bit. I don't know if it'll offset your earlier losses, but...
Save some face there.
Yeah, and Zan finishes the night kind of bombing out on some of the smaller pots. You think that she played so well in the beginning that she kind of used up all the stratagems she had. But yeah, let me do some quick computing. Several hours have passed. The dinner service is about to begin. Quispar comes over to the lot of you, and he says... I don't believe there'll be much reason to resume after dinner. I think we have some clear winners here. And everybody kind of nods in assent, except for maybe the people who are in last kind of start to grumble a little bit. So give me just a second and I will compute.
All right, I'm actually going to step away for just 1 second.
Sure.
Right back.
Yeah, man, they're right. Got one.
Oh man. Addition. Adding negative numbers. All of this is tricky.
Super tough. I'm also gonna step away for just a second.
Okay, I promise. I'm almost done. Man, I feel like I should put these into a spreadsheet and have them get arranged by... Because now I'm not sure. All right. I will just hold for a moment while we're waiting for the other players. In the interim,
Okay.
let's talk about our favorite episodes of the Venture Brothers.
Victor Echo November.
Yes. Blackout for and a
I was gonna say Operation.
Oh, all right. That's a good one.
Orb is a good one.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. Orb.
Orders regarding bodyguard.
Shoot, what's the Escape the House of Mummies Part 2?
Oh, yes, of course.
I mean, you can't miss out all this in Gargantua too.
That's the what's I can't remember the name of it. It's the one with the Grand Galactic Inquisitor.
Oh, yeah. 20 Years to Midnight.
20 Years to Midnight. Yeah.
Help me.
Yes. One of the all-time best. Michael, are you a fan of Venture Brothers by any chance? This is the Venture Brothers show.
I watched the first 3 or 4 seasons like 4 times.
I thought you were going to say the first episode. I thought you were going to say the first episode, and I'm like, that's a rough one. Keep going past that.
No, I watched the first several seasons. I don't know exactly when. I just kind of fell off. Like, I enjoy it. It's just one of those things where I just sort of...
It's all up on Hulu.
Yeah.
I'll probably circle back around to it at some point then.
Worthwhile. The last season is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what are we talking about?
Venture Brothers.
Venture Brothers.
Oh, okay. I've never watched any of it, so.
Too busy with Dune. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 7 places and 8 players. That doesn't make sense. I missed someone. Just a moment. It's Brambleclaw. Oh, no. So, at the end of this afternoon into the early evening of gambling, a ghost and Zan have very similar hordes, containing perhaps somewhere around the neighborhood of 35 chips each. At first I thought this meant you were tied, but then I realized that just makes you 2 of the 3 chip leaders. So, a ghost, it seems that you will be sharing the champions table with Zan and Laram. Both from the other table, so competitors that you haven't yet agitated, perhaps. Then the standings go from there. Foxy, Kern, Azure, Monty, and Brambleclaw. So Azure, you did finish there in the middle of the pack, so nothing to be grudged there.
Still 2 people worse than you.
Yay! I'm not the worst.
Brambleclaw is incensed. You can see Brambleclaw was a shifter, if you remember, and it seems like they are on the verge of shifting. Like their anger, they definitely slam their goblet down and storm out. You can see that by the end of the evening, they've packed their bag and they are just sitting in the sitting car waiting for the next stop. Like they are departing at Star Alaska. You don't know if this was their intention or not, but they are livid. Menace and Monty kind of, exchange conversation. You could actually hear maybe Menace is breaking down the game for Monty in a way similar to a ghost, telling him about all of his mistakes, and he's just shaking his head. Kern graciously accepts his loss. Foxy seems incredulous, but he congratulates his friend. If you remember, he and Laram were kind of traveling companions in this. But nonetheless, the champions table tomorrow evening. And that would be a ghost, Zan, and Laram. I just had to make sure I wrote that up. So by the time this all concludes, dinner is served. After hours of using your brain and whatnot unendingly, you probably worked up a bit of an appetite for the competitors. Talion, you've lost your stake, unfortunately. You staked one, and then you gave arcane assistance to the other. and in an
I was hoping they would meet in the middle. So.
Well, nonetheless, that's the best part, Azure. You didn't lose any of your money.
Okay.
And Talion doesn't seem too put off about it.
Didn't gain. All right.
Yeah.
I'm breaking even.
Yes, indeed.
So I would ask Azure for any thoughts on the play style of the 2 that you played with. Again, I'm going to play pretty much the odds anyways, but if there's anything about their playing that could be helpful.
As far as Zan goes, she's happy if she's winning.
That's true. So you might take from that she's easier to agitate when she's losing, if that at all factors into your play style. Maybe even subconsciously.
I'm gonna spend the afternoon, in between bouts of reading and bottle. I'm gonna spend the afternoon just doing a little bit of carving, and gonna carve a Assyrian tower, like from the nation.
Yeah.
And we're at dinner. I put it in front of a ghost for your championship table to bring you luck.
I will pick it up and inspect it as a trained wood carver myself. I will admire the skill that was put into it.
You've had several hours with nothing to do except for to work on this patiently and methodically, as is your style. Why don't you just make a check with advantage, Gideon? Let's just see how it turns out.
What stat? Remind me.
Is it a soft wood? I would say if it's like if it's a
Like,
soft,
something I'm in hand.
right? Strength or dexterity? I'll let you choose.
We're going to go with strength. That would be a grand total of 12.
Gotcha. So it doesn't have like a lot of fine details. It's obviously in the shape, and it's made smooth. Like everything has been carved and kind of whittled and planed down or whatever. It's definitely a tower. I'm not sure what embellishments would make a tower a Sharn tower, but
I would think like the big like aerial platforms, since they might have in Metro they have like the low gravity zones. So like big buttresses and places where you'd land an airship and that sort of thing.
it looks passable. A ghost, you're pretty sure it's a tower. Yeah, I don't think you know exactly what he was going for, but you're like, oh, hey, a tower.
Well, a ghost just assumes that Gideon is much better at this, but is only trying to encourage me by not overshadowing my own skills by so much. So I actually am very appreciative of this, gift.
Perfect. After dinner, the stop at Star Alaska. A lot of people are kind of gathered in the sitting car at this point, particularly the gamblers. Quispar is kind of impressed upon all of you that the champion should be afforded some, ceremony about this. Let everybody be in the sitting car when we arrive in Star Alaska, unless you have other business to attend to. So you could see everyone is kind of filtered in there. You all kind of watch out the windows, and you could decide how you feel about this. Brambleclaw storms off, like as soon as the train comes to a stop, just with a sack over her shoulder, grumbling and swearing. Everybody on the platform giving her a wide berth as she just stalks off. But you all are maybe kind of watching the platform to see what this champion looks like. And at first, some of you are maybe taken aback for a moment when a woman in the white robes and the white silver trimmed robes with a large flame pendant in silver about her neck boards the train and kind of makes her way into the sitting car. And she has an awkward moment where like everybody's like looking up at her. You can see Quispar is like doubled over in laughter, like silently just choking back the laughter. And she just she looks around kind of confused, wondering why everybody's looking at her. Some of the other gamblers in particular, and she goes, "What in the flame is going on here?" And Quispar begins cackling like a high-pitched laugh and assures everyone that she's not the champion. She's just another passenger. She looks at him and kind of sneers, and then embarrassedly, being the center of attention, just begins to kind of shuffle back to passenger car B. Looks like a Thrainish worshiper of the silver flame. But a moment after that, a Warforged of normal construction, I need to say this because a ghost exists in this world, with a billowing, even in the stillness of the car, stepping in, maybe having like snuck up on the train, a billowing purple and green cape, the colors of House Orion's livery, and wearing an electrum headband with a small triangular piece of a banded electrum in the front of it, mimicking a unicorn's horn. Just completely ostentatious, and as I said, cloak flapping even in the still air of the car.
It's a cloak of billowing.
It seems like it is, actually. He steps into the car and just kind of outstretches his hands, and Quispar begins frantically clapping his small hands together. You can see that Monty and Menace reluctantly kind of join in as well. Are you guys going to clap for the champion?
Oh, no, it's all from just laughing.
Yes. Yes, this is... yeah.
I'm gonna Italian's
Smaller
gonna cast a minor illusion and make it sound as though he farted whenever he walked.
Oh, Jesus. Classic.
That was the floor.
Yeah.
That was my chair.
Quispar does call out that this is Jack, the current champion standing of the Unicorns Run. A few of the other gamblers kind of casually join in on the clapping. Talion, just to see if your sound cuts through the sort of din here in the sitting car. Just give me an Arcana check real quick.
All right.
I almost wish you were like a wild magic sorcerer, because I'd be like wild magic surge. But
12.
okay. Some of the people seated kind of immediately near you. In particular, you see the Siren man and his wife. They like look and kind of begin to chuckle to themselves, like looking at Jack as he passes, and they hear this. Everybody else is kind of clapping, necessarily doesn't hear it, or maybe doesn't let on at least, but they seem to laugh. But nonetheless, Jack makes his way back to the passenger car B. Looks like where he is, so not in your guys' car. The stewards and the Zalargo military individuals who have been aboard have all just kind of been ignoring all of this. Like, once they've determined Quispar is not a threat and that, if this is at least keeping the passengers entertained, they're not reporting it. This is maybe the second or third Unicorns Run. I think you guys have heard in passing, so maybe some of them have seen it before. But aside from that, actually, hold on. Let me see if Jack would notice that. Jack, when he hears this sound, actually does kind of look around, looks left to right. You can't read an expression on a Warforged's face. But he doesn't seem to associate it with you. You can see that he looks down at the floorboards underneath his feet and kind of shifts his weight back and forth on them for a moment and then just continues his march. But yes, the rest of the evening just begins to kind of progress uneventfully. People begin to kind of filter out from the sitting cars and things like that. The trip from Star Alaska to Rote. So this is actually the train is stopped at the station momentarily as people are kind of embarking and disembarking. If there's anything you wanted to get off and accomplish here in the city, you have maybe 30 minutes to an hour, so it has to be something relatively close to the station. But they're also unloading a lot of cargo from the back.
If there's a bookshop or a newsstand or something on the platform.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
New reading material, new bottle.
Okay. Yeah, you can easily spend 3 silver pieces to get a copy of the... it's been about 2 days since the last edition of the Kornberg Chronicles, so I think there's another one that has just come out. And you can get a nice a hardback... Or no, actually, they have cheap paperbacks. And maybe one, I don't know if you've read it before. It is. It looks like it's a satirical novel, so perhaps not up to your standards, but it catches your eye for a moment. It's The War of the Five Ducks, and it's by Kessler.
So, I probably read it in Academy, and didn't really appreciate it. It's like, let's give this another chance.
Yeah, you might have taken things more seriously back then. Yeah. All right, yeah, this is a pretty renowned satire, so yeah, it's probably even counted before. So yeah, 3 silver pieces. You can get a paper and a book, easy enough. There's also an echo station here attached, of course, if anybody has any messages to relay. But barring that, we'll move along. To, like I said, the longest part of the trip. A day and about 9 1/4 hours. So you won't arrive in Rote until roughly 4 or 5 a.m. again on Nim the 8th. So you're spending just a whole day on the train. All right, perfect. The woman who boarded... The night passes uneventfully. You guys can keep watch, or of course with Sentry's Rest, you keep a good eye on the Ruby. A ghost, I'm assuming you've resisted the urge to look in on it. Or are you just opening it, peeking, and closing the bag very quickly? Or
Of the ruby that we have?
correct, the heart of the seawall.
Yeah, I probably would want to just make sure it's there at least once a day. I've read enough mystery novels to know that sometimes they'll flash back and they've already stolen something. Like you read the whole book and find out they've had it the whole time.
You open the bag just to make sure it's not filled with sand, that somebody didn't switch it.
And in Ocean 12's this thing.
Perfect. You can see the glow has gotten particularly dull. You just see like a faint pinpoint of light and kind of like an extra dimensional darkness. Just a very, very faint little ember, basically. But nonetheless, still seemingly active in some regard. But fortunately, a hobgoblin spirit doesn't leap out to attack you. So,
That could be, yeah.
the next day, the woman who boarded at Star Alaska quickly impresses upon all of you that she is a missionary of the Silver Flame. And you can't help but overhear her name as she kind of moves about the sitting car and tries to make conversation with all the individuals. She introduces herself as Lycian Drosen. And she is just here to kind of explain the basic tenets of the Silver Flame. She spends maybe a few minutes talking to the Sharn refugees before the kids kind of just drive her away with with their insistent questions. And you can see their parents just kind of like high-five them once once she shuffles on or whatever. So you might have like a brief passing interaction with her, Talion. I don't know if your illusion fingers are itching, but she is a woman of the cloth.
Actually, if she approaches me, I'm gonna have a hard time not antagonizing her.
Yeah, yeah. Like, oh, yes, the leader of your church is a child. Like,
No, more like I've seen exactly what your flame does on the battlefield, and you people are butchers.
It's not whole.
There's nothing about you that is holy.
And if I'm around, I am going to like as he's antagonizing, I'm gonna like just cast some minor illusions. Probably like a loud bark of a dog, like right behind her ear, kind of like just to punctuate what he's saying. Like butchers, and just something like that.
Well, you could see, hearing the cut of your jib, Gideon, and immediately kind of trying to take from that what she can. She's beginning to say, thank you for your service. I'm sure your nation appreciate. And then all of a sudden, this this cacophonous sound just bursts in her ear. And she jumps up and looks about. Talion, just give me a stealth check just to see. I'm assuming you do this and then just blend in.
Yes. Yeah, that's a 19.
Okay.
I think I got away with it.
She looks about confused. She looks down at the floorboards. she kind of steps on them and rocks back and forth. She doesn't know what's going on, and she's embarrassed and kind of takes her leave.
I'm leaning heavily on the personality trait and ideal here because, what they did that day, no, does not fly, and their faith is not worth going to war for.
Yeah, she's perhaps maybe one of the more unpopular characters on the train. I think different people take different views on the Thrain, the people of Thrain, or the Thrainish, whatever you want to refer to them as. But there's a lot of religions to choose from. Missionary work must be difficult. Regardless, aside from encounters of that nature, unless there's anybody in particular that you wanted to interact with. The day passes pretty uneventfully. Gideon, I think you make decent headway. If you're the kind to read the broadsheet like end to end or whatever, you're all caught up on the news. You're probably digging into the War of the Five Ducks. Um, the rest of you, anything in particular you do to pass this time? The gambling doesn't begin again until after dinner, and then ends tonight.
Diane's still a bit on edge from the earlier adventure, so I've got my rod of retribution. I've had it with me the last 24 hours or so, and so I kind of just twiddle with it like it's a pen or a pencil, and just kind of keep messing with it.
I would probably be working on my own carving to return the gift to Gideon.
Nice. All right. Azure?
I don't know. Kind of watch the. I want to keep an eye on Zan. Actually, she seems such a easily disturbed character.
Yes. No, I hope that's not a men writing women criticism. Regardless, the rest of the day passes pretty uneventfully. The crowds filter in and out of the sitting car. Still no sign of Worfcar. The Zalarga military kind of takes to patrolling. You see at least one of them just kind of passing back and forth through the cars throughout the rest of the day. Dinner. Another round of drinks is provided to the table. Over and above, I guess a drink is included with your meal, but another round comes from Quispar. He says he kind of comes over to your table and sets out that round for you, having taken it from the stewards. And he says, if you're sitting with someone contending for the championship, you all should have a drink. I know he doesn't partake, but just as a gesture of goodwill.
I'll cheers and tap my glasses and then fake, but I won't pour over my shoulder, but I'll just pretend like I'm drinking.
Yeah, perfect.
Still no Worfcar?
Keep your wits about you, boy.
What did you say about Worfcar, Italian?
I said still no Worfcar at dinner?
No. You could see, since Quispar is kind of in the dining hall circulating, it kind of maybe becomes more apparent to you when a steward goes by with a covered tray. It seems like he is holed up in his private car, or his private cabin at least. But after dinner, the stewards have cleared the table. Quispar is kind of circulating. The rest of the gamblers have turned into the audience for this finale. And you imagine that, the first place prize for this is 100 gold, from that pot that you all paid into. But maybe it's the station that's more so exciting for these individuals. So you could see some of them actually placing side wagers on who's going to win from the champions table. So let me see here. We've got Zan, Laram, and a ghost.
This is like the next day, so I have all my stuff back, yeah?
Yeah. Like I said, that stretch is the longest stretch. So you'll be at Rote in the morning. This is the last evening that you guys should have to spend on a train. From Rote to Sharn is the blink of an eye, basically, in comparison to how far you've come.
We're supposed to pick up this contact in Rote, yes?
Correct, yes. So some of you early risers...
On the Grave Lily.
Yes. All right, perfect. A ghost, let's go ahead and see the champions table, the opening gambits. Talion, is there any preparation before a ghost settles in? Or is
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I was going to say, is he going au natural?
Absolutely. I'm going to just, I'm going to say, a ghost, come here for a minute. Could you bend down here? I want to tell you something.
Of course, Italian.
I'm going to put a hand on him, and I'm going to say, listen, you're smarter than you know. Go out there and win that. And I'm going to cast it right then.
Very inspirational. All right. A ghost. You settle in. The Warforged Jack kind of looks to you and gives a nod of respect. And he says, I've been the only one of our kind to participate in the last 2 of these. And I only won the last one myself. Best of luck to you. And he he does like an imitation of laughter. I guess Warforged can laugh or whatever,
we
but it might
both
seem
laugh.
unnatural. Yes, but you could see that he leaned on the luck part as if to say like, these meat sacks and their luck. But yeah, he gives you a deep nod, and the game begins. Go ahead and give me your check.
All right. Yeah, 18.
All right. You establish an early lead with an 18. Jack kind of holds his own, picking up a few to add to his starting horde. And who is... Oh, Laram begins to lag. What did you say?
Italian says, "That's what I'm talking about." Goes
Yeah.
little bardic inspiration your way, so you have an extra.
Nice. Yeah, if, I'm sorry, is it Zerum? Is that the
Laram with an L.
who's the other one with the Z?
Zan.
There. My handwriting so bad I can't even read it. If they start to do poorly, I will call out the fact that Azure said that if you start to do poorly, you will start to become less personable. So, like, if that happens, I'm going to feed into it by
Yeah.
not on purpose, but just commenting like, "Yes, Azure said you might start acting like this if it goes poorly."
She is tight-lipped at the moment. She doesn't really gain or lose any ground in the opening gambits. Kind of flows back and forth, chips in and chips out of her horde. Laram kind of begins to lag behind, and you can see that Foxy is kind of cheering him on from the sidelines. You don't think in an arcane way, Talion, but just cheering for his friend. And we move into the mid game. Let's get another check. You have a D6 to add.
Nice. So all together, that's a 26. I got a 6 on my bardic inspiration.
This also happened to be a big pot. You and Jack, the champion, are kind of cleaning up at the table. Laram is completely bombing out. His horde looks completely depleted. At the end of the gambits, he's pulling new cards for his hand, and you can see he like shuffles them around, and he's starting to sweat a little bit. Foxy finishes his drink and kind of leaves the car. Not wanting to keep watching this lightning rail wreck, but Jack again kind of gives you a nod, and you guys actually maybe have a brief moment where you discuss the last several gambits and probabilities and such. You can see he has kind of the same focused mind as you. But let's go ahead.
Toward the end of that, Italian's going to be like, "Get your head in the game." Give you one more bardic inspiration for the end.
So the advantage is gone, but I still have bardic inspiration.
You could re-advantage him if you want.
I'm just gonna. I think that at this point, it's. I've been
Now
so
the magic
loud.
is in him.
I've been so loud. I'm like, I think I'm gonna go for it with this, but I'm not gonna be too obvious.
All right, so just to check, you notice that the pots do actually get smaller towards the end game. It seems like everybody has kind of anteed their most valuable cards up front, so this might not be a bad time to lose, but...
Oh. All right, so that is a 12 total, middle of the road.
Okay. Jack gains a little bit on you into the end game. And Zan, you can see that her nerves are starting to fray. She does net a little bit here in the end game, but you're not convinced that it'll be enough, and kind of judging by her dour expression, she's kind of left her wine glass like undrank at this point. She's just kind of staring as Quisbar comes over and kind of begins to take a look at everyone's horde and start to total things up. So she is looking a little concerned and frustrated. But let's just see where... everyone ends up.
Italian's holding his breath.
Yeah.
It's visible.
I'm admiring Jack's unicorn horn.
You may not have to admire it much longer. It may become your property. Yeah. Wow. The totals are counted. In fourth place is Laram with 24 chips. In third place is the champion, Jack, with only 33 chips. You can see that he accepts this graciously. He already has taken off the crown and pushed it towards the center of the table. Zan is staring daggers at you. She didn't win a lot of big pots through the beginning and mid-game, but she did defend her own hoard. She didn't really lose much. And you could see that at this point your hordes have kind of been swept away as they've been counted. So Quispar looks and he says, the second place belongs to Zan, 39 chips. And the newcomer, what did you say your name was again?
A ghost?
Ghost.
It's a ghost.
Ghost.
I'm sure that's lost in the din, though, because no one ever gets that.
An outstanding horde. A horde and a half. A horde and 2.5, perhaps. 50 chips. All of those pots in the beginning and mid-game. How did you do it?
I would like to thank Talion. I believe that they've inspired me somehow.
And even as he's kind of standing close to you and saying this to you, but all the others in the car have kind of broken into applause. You could see just the other gamblers in the audience. Zan even you can see her lips are still kind of pursed, but she does stand up from the table and offer you a handshake.
I would oblige.
Yeah. I think Azure had heard that she took second last year as well, so she does get a bit of a payout. She actually doubles her money, so she gets 40 gold. Jack wins 20, which as champion he didn't have to buy in, so he actually makes a little off of this regardless. But Jack does insist that you take the crown, only on the condition, of course, that you return next year. Quispar will find you. He somehow found us all and brought us back together.
I see no reason why I can't do that.
Very well then. It's like I said, it's like an electrum band, and in the front, it's not like a foot long. It's only a few inches. It's a triangular, still kind of flattened piece of electrum bands that form like the ridges of like a unicorn's horn.
All right, I will put it on.
Bananas.
Wear it proudly. It's the first time I've ever won anything. I've stolen lots of things. I've never won anything before.
Zan just downs her drink all in one gulp, hearing the first time I've ever won anything. Quispar does come to you with 100 gold pieces, and he says that these are your. Italian picked up his pencil to write something down. Now I'm concerned. Are you interceding with his money?
No, I am not. It's his. I've learned my lesson.
All right. Well, the celebrations continue. Several of the gamblers kind of begin to drink heavily into the night. Your train will arrive en route in the early morning, so it may not be in the best interest to be as carried away as you were previous nights. But you guys pass the evening celebrating. All of the gamblers kind of come up to you in turn, Ghost, and introduce themselves and shake your hand. Jack comes by towards the end of the night and says, "You wear it well." And he reaches up and like taps on the, or I guess he like reaches down since you're dwarven. Yeah. But yeah, perfect. You are champion standing of the Unicorn's Run. Well played.
The true magic were the friends we brought along the way who cast their spells and let me keep without my knowledge.
Indeed. The night passes uneventfully again. This is the last night you'll have to spend on the train so that may be of interest or maybe of remarkability to you all. The next morning, the train arrives en route. So a Ghost and Gideon, I know that you're capable of waking up. Talion and Azure, did you set a wake-up call? One of the stewards will come and knock on your door? Or
Italian did this time.
Okay.
Because we were forewarned that there would be somebody that was important. So
Azure, you're going to sleep through it sounds like?
Oh, yeah.
If there's any business worth doing, you could do it at a goodly hour. That's your philosophy, perhaps.
If the gods wanted me to see a sunrise, I would have put it at noon.
Yes, exactly. Okay, yeah. So the train pauses en route, and a few of the people do actually disembark here. A handful of the gamblers. So some of the people you guys have kind of come to know. The Spire Express. Nobody. I guess actually a few other people do board just for the ride into Sharn, which might make it a more popular route. Since they don't book passenger cars, the sitting room is perhaps fuller than you're accustomed to. But as a large influx of people do filter in and kind of take up their seats, you guys all gather together, with the exception of Azure. And in the sitting car, you do see an individual. He appears to be another Carnathi. You could tell just kind of by the darker tones of black and gray in his apparel, and raven hair, goatee. A bit younger than Kern, so maybe roughly Gideon's age, maybe a little younger. And he is wearing upon the lapel of his jacket a white bone meal colored flower pinned there prominently. You can see that he got on board with like a suitcase and like an umbrella, and he's kind of arrayed those in his booth and like stretched out his legs. Maybe a little inconsiderate. It's not like standing room only in here at this point, but he definitely is giving the appearance of not wanting visitors.
Ghost will point. Is that a grave lily?
He looks up, and cocks his head.
Yes, boy.
I'm assuming.
I think that's the person we were looking for then.
How loud are you saying that?
Normal. I mean, I'm not screaming it, but this is just normal conversational tone.
Okay, you can see he pulls a newspaper out and begins to kind of peruse it, ignoring you, perhaps pointedly.
Italian's going to say, "A Ghost. Let's go look at your. I want to take a closer look at your unicorn. Your unicorn. Your...
Oh, would you like to wear it?
Well, let's.
It goes around your neck.
I lift it back up. Okay, but let's go. I want to look at it closer in our cart, in our where we're sleeping. I'm having a hard time, but it's really clear that what I'm trying to do is give Gideon all the opportunity to talk to the Carnathi because he's Carnathi. So I think it's the most diplomatic way to do it.
Very grudgingly get up and shuffling towards the portion of the sitting car in question will kind of try to catch eyes and give the subtle head nod.
Okay. Yeah. They do gesture for you to sit. They kind of take down their feet and slide their umbrella over. Still just kind of studying their paper and allowing you to join them, but kind of ignoring you.
They'll ask, expecting rain.
Yeah. So at that, he kind of lowers his paper, maybe just thrown off by the Warforged action, and he says, "Oh, you'd like to discuss the weather? Yes, it's been clear in Sharn these past few days."
Word is there's a hailstorm in Stormreach.
You can see that. Make an insight check for me, actually.
Decent at insight. Okay, cool. 16.
Okay. They kind of like stifle a bit of a frown, But nonetheless, they like fold their paper and set it down, and kind of scooch closer to you, moving their briefcase and whatnot. And they say, "I don't. Okay. I don't know what the Zalargo intelligence forces are training people on nowadays, but the storm reaches in Zendrick. It's way too hot for hailstorms. I get your drift, but
I don't care for this cloak and dagger.
What was your total on your insight check?
16.
Okay. You also pick up that they are kind of like affecting a Karnath accent or a Karn accent, but they are faking it. Yeah.
Can I tell like where he might actually be from, like Realish or Ondarian? Or...
It's definitely like they're putting an accent onto like unaccented common. So by like, they don't seem to be concealing their own accent or whatever. At least they're not tripping over it that bad, or maybe they're a slightly better actor than you think. But with a 16, no, I mean, they might be Brelish. You kind of maybe looking closer, you don't think that it's like hair and makeup though. Like that's not a wig, and they didn't like dye their hair.
Maybe a double agent or a defector or something like that.
Perhaps. They do actually kind of like look at you though, and they say, "I was told you have some traveling companions. Do we want to gather them all together, or are you?"
Is that wise for your position?
I would prefer to only have to explain this once. We only have a few hours before we're in Sharn.
I'll direct him to where a ghost and my sitting or sleeping car is, and I tell him, come in 10 minutes.
Okay.
And I'll gather the other 3.
Sure. So it's closer to like 5:30 or 6 in the morning. Azure, are they going to drag you out of bed, or?
Get up.
Fine. Clunk, clunk.
You might be able to you can recline in a ghost's bunk bed since he hasn't used it this entire trip anyway. But nonetheless, you guys all end up kind of gathered together in your guys' passenger car. It does get a little crowded with 5 individuals in there. But you could see that this gentleman who does introduce himself, and he says, "You may call me Detlev," and he says, let's take a quick look here at what he says. He says, "A collaboration has been arranged between the intelligence organ of Breland and the intelligence organ of Zalargo, which is to say, of course, that the Trust and the Crown have a mutual interest in securing this from those interested in obtaining it. I've been told that you all are aware of the situation and that you all are ferrying a package. I will tell you where to take this, and I will also provide you with some information that you are to relay to your friend back home." And he's like looking around the room, kind of like sizing you all up, and he says that kind of pointedly in Talion. But he says, "Tell me, have you ever seen this before?" And he goes into his suitcase and he pulls out, it's a small, at first you think it might be like a pamphlet. It's a little bit larger than that, but smaller than your Sharn Inquisitive or your Kornberg Chronicle. But it looks like a small series of papers kind of bound together very lightly. And on the front is an illustration, not colored, but sketched somewhat crudely, but in a charming way. And it is titled Hoger, the Helpful Ogre. It looks like, to use an anachronism perhaps, it looks like a comic book. It's just several sheets bound together cheaply, and yeah, he just kind of like looks to the lot of you.
I feel like a ghost would be like very interested in that.
Yeah.
I mean, just comic book and way up.
Recognize it as like a disguised intelligence brief or something like that.
Oh no. No, you're grasping for straws. I mean, like, he extends it out to kind of get past amongst your group as he talks. So if he holds it out, a ghost, are you gonna snatch it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I won't like snatch it, but I'll reach for it if no one else goes there first. I'll take it.
He goes on to kind of quickly explain, seeing that you all aren't. He says, well, it's not surprising to me at all that you do not know of it. It was meant to be a run of several issues, 5 or 6, I believe. After the third one, the Crown saw to it to kind of stamp it out. This is Droam propaganda. It came from the other side of the mountains. It's meant to illustrate to the youth in Breland that ogres, orcs, goblins, and the like can share and get along with those of us not of more monstrous descents. A ghost, are you flipping through it?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
start reading it.
Go ahead and give me an investigation check.
That is a 20 total.
Wow.
15 plus.
You're leafing through it. The quality of the illustrations kind of varies from page to page. Some of them look like really good and maybe slightly better than what you could do, and some of them are kind of slapdash. He goes on to elaborate that these are crafted typically by the hands of many slaves and produced cheaply. And as he said, they were imported into Breland from Droam, the nation next door, to serve as propaganda. A ghost, you flip through, and in the middle section, you see a scorch mark of a serpentine symbol, kind of outlined in like a crushed amber residuum. And with a 20 investigation, because you were the one that spotted this back in the library at
You
Korenberg.
said this is the same thing from the book.
Precisely. Detlev says, this particular issue was gifted to a Brelish ambassador during a visit to the Great Crag. He brought it back home. It sat on his desk unperused for some time, and then, as you might imagine, something unfortunate happened. His son happened upon this, while leafing through it, became petrified. I've heard that something similar has happened in Korenberg now, and now you can tell your friends in Korenberg that we too have been unable to restore this individual. It's been some 6 months since this incident occurred, and we've kept this fairly close to the chest, but if this indicates the actions of an organized nature, then it's worth sharing with our gnomish friends. So as this has been kept need to know, we've been concerned about the more hawkish elements of Brelish nobility and government, calling for escalation of force with Droam in response. The official stance of Droam is that this is not an attack endorsed by them. There is a terrorist faction operating within the nation of Droam. They call themselves the Fangs. They believe that the current policy of Droam to honor the Treaty of Thronehold and to vie for being established as a nation is toothless. So they call themselves the Fangs, and in spite of that, perhaps. The Citadel believes that this enchantment was crafted by one of the descendants of the Queen of Stone herself, Sheshka. he doesn't go into elaborate on that. So you guys can make history checks if you feel like you might know of Droam history.
Oh,
What did I make?
21.
Wow.
I'm too engrossed in the comic book. I'm not paying attention.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. In the comic, Hoger is he's helping some villagers build a bridge over a river, and you can see that like there are some simple passages in common, but there's also some like pictographs kind of illustrating his interactions, as if not everyone who was writing in this new common or could copy it effectively.
I say it somewhat kind of under my breath, whatever the equivalent of that is for Warforged. Go. He is quite helpful.
Talion, what was your total? 21's on the table. Let's see.
14.
Okay. And Azure?
Didn't quite roll, but we'll see. Yeah, no, 7.
I mean, you might be dozing a little bit still. With a 21, I will say... Oh, so with a 14, Talion, I'll tell you, Shushka is known as the Queen of Stone. She is a Medusa warlord, who is one of kind of like the division of authority in Droam is obviously the daughters of Sora Kel at the top, the 3 hags, Katra, Manya, and Turaza. And then warlords kind of rule over vast expanses of those lands without like a lot of official borders and such. And the Queen of Stone, Sheshka, with a 14, I mean, you know, she has a ferocious reputation. With a 21, Gideon, I think you more specifically know that legend has it that if you are to be petrified by Sheshka, the only thing that can restore you is her own kiss. So by alleging that this is petrification from a daughter of the Queen of Stone, it may not be her kiss necessarily, but it's well and above normal petrification. So your restorations and such have not been able to reverse this.
Well, now we're starting to piece things together.
Yes. Well, I wonder if you have more pieces than I do. I see how this book came to be in possession of the ambassador, and I'm sure it was intended for him, not his son. I've been told, the intelligence says, that your man was in Korenberg looking for some Dakani artifact, finding some Dakani artifact. I don't understand how this symbol ended up there, nor do I understand how goblins had found out about it. Your organization
Made a number of, call it friends, call it enemies, call it debtors, in the Arum.
I don't think the Arum would give the information to the goblins unless they thought they could sell it, but maybe worth looking
I think
into.
our initial supposition was that the first victim we're aware of wasn't the intended victim. It was like an accidental thing, but I don't know that that's true, but I think at least that's what I was thinking.
That is also possible. If so, they need to become a little more accurate with their terroristic attacks.
Yeah,
perhaps.
that would be 0 for 2 if that's the case.
Wisest course of action is to get this information back to the trust and see if the greater minds than ours can piece some of this together.
Who are we to meet with in Sharn?
Well, convey the package to Moorgrave University. There, you should ask for Curator Fedek Doring. If you make an appearance, if you can navigate the university, someone there will point you in the right direction. But all of this is to say, of course, friends, this information has been kept need to know, as I said, to keep tensions from bubbling over. Officially, the stance of the daughters at Great Crag is that they do not endorse the actions of the Fangs, but there are some amongst us who think that if they set their minds to it, they could stamp them out, and they have not yet done so. Maybe they're using this as pressure towards treaty or alliance. Maybe they are supportive of the Fang's methods. Difficult to say. I don't conjecture, and I certainly don't want to say anything that might lead to war. We don't need another one of those. And now that he's like sized you up, he like looks at you, Gideon, when he says that. Like he takes you as a veteran. But yes, convey your package. You can keep that. He points to the graphic novel, the comic book in Ghost's hands. And he says, and you can share this information with the trust, of course, by the means that you've been provided. But you will be able to.
As an aside, if we're going to make a message to Codger and the Trust anytime soon, I wouldn't mind shipping that comic book with alongside it, if possible.
A ghost. It's very limited edition. This is Hoger, the Helpful Ogre #1.
One alt variant cover.
They're all variant covers, but yes, this one.
How does it end? Like when I get to the final.
It ends with you petrified.
yeah. That's the middle part. It's rather dull. No, it ends with a collection of villagers all kind of gathered about waving goodbye to Hoger, the Helpful Ogre, as he meanders down the road. Incredible Hulk style, I guess. But you were told that it was supposed to span several issues before it was kind of seized on and stamped out. But yeah, this is the side quest where you could start collecting them, or you could send it. But
I definitely want I mean, I can read them. I don't necessarily have to keep them. But, I definitely want to see where the story goes. I'm hooked.
Yeah, Hoger, the Helpful Ogre. Well, very well. He says, I think that your friends have made arrangement for you to reach Morgrave. Fedek knows that you are coming, and he will direct you how to safely deposit this ruby, where it can be studied until it is ready to be dispelled or disjuncted. We place a lot of trust in this division of the university. A ghost, go ahead and just make one investigation check for me. You've got a lot of pieces of the puzzle laid out here.
Rolled an 18. That's 23 total.
Okay. You're kind of going over this exchange of information and everything that you guys have told him and what he's told you. And you realize that the only thing that you guys really haven't elaborated on with him is the information that Worfkar gave you. Worfkar kind of retreaded some of the information you guys already knew, but there was one tidbit that he included that wasn't officially known as far as you're aware. Do you happen to recall what that was?
I do not.
Dreams.
The dream. Yeah. So it occurs to you that there is a piece of the puzzle you guys haven't yet shared. Do you know how a ghost would maybe express that, or if he would?
Probably unintentionally. Like, probably just thinking, that's, no one talked about the dreams yet, just like to himself more than anything else.
Detlev is kind of like packing up to go, and you just like one more thing to him.
Yeah. One more thing.
Yeah. So he turns about and he goes, "Dreams? What of dreams?"
Dreams.
He says, okay, hold on. Intelligence was communicated to us by your friends that they did. Perhaps you're not up to date on everything I know. My briefing included that someone at the library in Korenberg had a dream. Is this what you're referring to?
What we learned from the Aurum operative who, I can't even call him friend, our victim.
So we were victimized by him first. Italian's really very self-defensive right now because he totally ignored
the
this.
location of this artifact was revealed to him in a dream, supposedly.
Total bullshit. I mean,
I don't suppose the ambassador had had any strange dreams.
Well, you've spent several days on a train. Perhaps the intelligence hasn't caught up with you. A gnomish clerk at the Library of Zalargo had a dream where his dearly departed mother appeared to him and told him that her soul would suffer eternal torment unless he accomplished a simple task. He awoke the next morning with a book left on his doorstep, a book that was a second edition printing of some Dakani history, and he was told by his spectral mother in this dream, and he's just kind of like shrugging it off a little bit. It seemed like a strange excuse for committing this crime, but we believe that this clerk is the one who left the book in the studies chamber, swapped it out for the first edition printing, and he's been apprehended, and this has all come out in the interrogation. So, who else had a dream? You're saying your friend from the Aurum told you that the victim of this had a dream as well.
Supposedly, that was how he originally found the item in question. Instructions in a dream.
That hadn't been shared in the intelligence. Italian, I'll tell you at this point, I don't think, I think I asked you after that session if you had mentioned the dream to Codger, and you hadn't. So now these are two pieces that people didn't realize snapped together until this moment.
Now I'm really like I'm coughing, I'm cough choking. Italian's cough choking because he's super embarrassed that he didn't realize that this was important. So he's not even making any sense. Not even saying anything. He's just cough choking.
He says, well, dreams are the domains of Dao Quor. This could be Kiori involvement. That seems unlikely. I believe there are hags that can penetrate the dreams of others.
Would I know by chance, has this something been weaponized at any point? You know, was it a common tactic to, oh, hey, that general is going to lead this charge in the morning. Nightmare.
You can make a history check on that, I suppose.
Trying to figure out if Warforged dream.
I don't think Warforged do. I think
They don't actually sleep, so
I think it might be explicitly stated that they don't. You're not aware of any historical significance. I mean, you've read stories involving the use of dreams to, communicate prophecy and things like that, but nonetheless, it seems that Codger wasn't able, or for some reason didn't communicate to you about the clerk who swapped out the book, but he also didn't know the significance of the dream part maybe either, so he might not have mentioned that as part of this guy's seemingly harebrained plea for insanity or whatever. But nonetheless, Detlev kind of gives a nod, and he says, well, I will file this information in my report. You can share this information with your end, and the Crown and the Trust will continue their partnership. In particular, of course, we're most interested in a cure for this affliction. Perhaps after you've rid yourself of this relic, we can contact you again. It doesn't matter where you're staying in Sharn. If the Citadel wants to find you, we will.
Diane starts coughing even harder.
I just sort of, in a friendly way, clap hand on shoulder. You need to work a little harder on your accent.
You can see they smile at that, and they reach up and kind of tussle their hair and shed the jacket, and in a moment you could see that their features distort and change entirely, shifting temporarily to like a stone gray coloration, and then quickly shifting into like a brellish complexion. Their hair changes from black to brown, the color of their eyes, etc. And you can see that they're kind of like unbuttoning their undervest and kind of making as much of a change in their outfit as they can. They like leave the briefcase there and kind of turn for the door, and they go, "All right, I'll keep that in mind." And they've totally dropped the accent at this point. But yeah, they're going to exit under a different persona, and they say, "Enjoy your time in Sharn,
They
if
left.
you can." Yeah, I mean, there's yeah. I'm assuming a ghost would probably snap it open in due time. I mean, it's empty. It looks like it maybe just had the comic in there.
There-
Yeah, it's just a prop.
Maybe I keep disappearing. There we go.
A little better.
You guys have a few hours left on the train until you reach Sharn. You reach Sharn at about 11 a.m. I don't know if a.m. and p.m. exist as
I'll
such.
toss it to the group because I am not a magic expert by any stretch of the imagination. Is all right. What causes weird dreams?
Arcana roll?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Man. 9.
The dice are not in your favor.
They really are not liking me tonight.
Poor diet, sleeping in a cold room. No, but I mean, you Azure, you kind of rack your understanding of Arcana, and then like you ultimately come back around to kind of agreeing with the agent's assessment. He did mention hags. Not to say that the daughters of Sorakel themselves would be implicated in this, but to say there may be other hags in Droam. There may be a hag who has allied with the Fangs. And kind of sharing that or reiterating that, a ghost with your 20 investigation roll, I'll carry that over and say, none of you really took prisoners or interrogated anyone. If you recall, the hobgoblins that attacked you all in Kornberg had like secret spy suicide tooths, if you will. So there wasn't much of a chance to interrogate them. The bugbears, you guys put down pretty mercilessly as well. But those represent two different species and two wholly different tribes who, as far as you know, may or may not have communicated with one another. A ghost, do you think it's possible that if someone is visiting people in dreams and telling them to do things, that they could have also orchestrated these attacks as well, with your 20 investigation from earlier, specifically with regards to dreams, I would say. So how these Dakani remnants from the seawall found out, and then how several days north of there, the Margul bugbear found out. They could have all been visited in dreams, perhaps, although you have no way of confirming that.
I think a ghost is now just obsessed with the idea of dreaming. Like, I want to find a way to dream.
Oh man, now I've got to come up with an Inception storyline where somebody finds a way to put you in Dalquor.
Do Warforged dream of elemental bound sheep?
Perfect. Yeah. I would have also accepted like Valinar or Magebread sheep. No, perfect. Yeah. So, you guys have this discussion. You know, it seems like the gnomish clerk in Zalargo, if this story is at all true, was manipulated into doing it. So you aren't necessarily worried about direct psychic attack, but you may be worried about, creeping
Like,
enchantments.
anyone
or
can be
something.
a sleeper cell now.
Literally.
Yeah.
Ah!
It's possible. All right, perfect. So the train arrives in Sharn. It's about 9:30. Are we about ready to wrap up? Can we get maybe a few more minutes or?
I mean, if there's a good place to stop, because otherwise this would be a good place to stop since
that's it.
we're. But again, if there's like a thing about to happen, I'm good for a few more
Well,
minutes.
I don't know how much you have planned at Moorgrave, but we're this close to completing the quest, so to speak. Like,
Yeah. Well, I'll move quickly here for a moment.
So I
actually,
did
I
want to
don't-
ask, did I have any time to work on my carving? Like I
Oh,
wasn't
yeah,
sure
I forgot you
exactly.
had said that.
That's fine. I just
Yeah, definitely. You've had plenty of time. You can make a check with advantage. I mean, you've been
okay.
nothing but riding the train, and
Playing cards.
And
Yeah.
what
Cards.
Yeah.
it's either
what is that?
strength.
What skill does that fall under?
Let's say strength or dexterity.
All right. That's a 16.
Okay. Is that a 16 dexterity?
Well, that's a 15 on the die, and I have a +1 dexterity
Okay,
or
cool.
+1 strength. I just didn't know if there was a skill that.
Yeah, I would
Well,
say for wood carving, I'm going to say. Oh, go ahead, Gideon.
The wood carving tools give you your proficiency bonus too.
Yeah, if you're
Okay.
proficient with them.
So then that would be an 18 total.
Okay.
Yes, I have wood carving as a
Yeah,
skill
Yeah.
and tool.
I would say for the wood carving, like finer, you're gonna get more finer details with dexterity. With strength, you're just gonna get basic shapes and stuff. Not to say that those
Okay.
aren't beautiful as well, but what is it you're carving for Gideon?
So the idea of the 5 ducks struck me. I want to do a Tiamat style thing that's ducks.
A five-headed
Five-headed duck.
duckahedron. All right. You've had
I'm
a
gonna be
couple of.
and a 5-headed duck for the rest of the game, aren't I?
I would say that seems like an elaborate wood carving. You've had a couple of days to work on this. You're definitely like 3 out of 5 heads down, and it looks really good to you. But I think you're gonna need one more check and maybe another day's work to flesh that
One
out.
of the heads looks a little more goose-like, so it's like duck, duck, duck.
Oh no! Boo. Okay, we're done now. That's how we end the night.
Little Goose Game sequel is just going to be off the chain.
Yeah. All right. So the train passes into the city of Sharn. As you guys are approaching, of course, you're third level. You've been around a little bit. You can decide whether or not you've never seen Sharn before or not. But of course, it is the city of towers. It is the city of knives, the city of lost souls, the city of 1,000 eyes. These are all its superlatives. And even at this distance, as the train is making its final approach, you can see the specks of many flying shapes flitting about between towers. The train, as it gets closer and closer, it only makes the buildings and all the constituent parts of the city seem huger and huger, to the point where you're just like standing with your nose against a skyscraper and looking up, basically. But you pass to Terminus Station. You see Rowan's Gate, where a lot of the foot traffic caravans are coming through and such. And as you arrive in Terminus Station, you are in Lower Tavik's Landing. This is kind of the entry point to the city. There are a number of guardians of the gate moving about. And as you're filing off, you're kind of directed into a queue where they can check your identification papers. It's nothing too, fascist or anything like that. It's standard fare for travel, and you all, I'm sure, have identification papers to show. But
I have no idea.
I think Warforged are all issued them. They're definitely like the freshest sets, having only been minted in like the last couple of years. Like you're like if you reorder your birth certificate, like it's not folded, it's not crimped, But yeah, even without that, I mean, I think you're just kind of waved past anyway by some guardians of the gate who just think like, oh, it's a Warforged. What am I going to do? Look at a picture of a Warforged and know if it's this Warforged? Although, actually, with your unique appearance, they might even mistake you as some sort of homunculi. So they just wave you by thinking that you're, a piece of artifice and not a sentient being.
I do have a beautiful cloak and a unicorn torn
you're
out,
getting a
so-
lot of looks.
yeah.
You're getting so many looks. But fortunately, this particular area, Terminus and Rowan's Gate, is kept kind of secure by the Guardians of the Gate. That Lower Tavik's Landing isn't always the best place to be. But nonetheless, you do see a halfling man standing there, dressed in like a simple livery, with like a little cap, and he's holding a sign, a chalkboard sign, and he's written on it, Talion and Co.
That's your
So
name.
good to be recognized. Yes.
There you
It
go.
seems that we have been anticipated, gentlemen and lady.
Yes, reserved sky coach. I'll be taking you up out of this mess. And he just he tucks the sign under his arm and kind of gestures for you all to follow him. You're led to a wooden skiff, similar to a sailing vessel, of course, but as you all kind of clamber aboard, this is private and the fare has been prepaid for you. You are all perhaps amazed or perhaps not by it lifting up off of the ground. The manifest
I'm
zone.
absolutely leaning over everyone to look out this window, and I'm leaning over everyone else to look out this window.
Yeah, you can lean over a rail. It's like an open deck, basically. It's like Jabba's skiff in Return of the Jedi, maybe a little smaller. Actually,
I'm
probably.
just amazed and wondered at flying.
Yeah.
I don't mind the trains. These things make me nauseous.
Yeah, and this halfling is not the. He's like a Chicago cabbie, this thing lifts up and immediately disperses a couple of sore sled riders that are yelling obscenities as you guys break up in that direction. But you climb steeply, headed towards the southwest. You can see, of course, as you are ascending the multiple layers of the city, changing and shifting, the businesses and housing kind of growing more and more middle class and maybe even upper class. And by the time that you guys kind of break over the towers of Tavik's Landing and get a view of the city as a whole laid out in front of you, you're bearing southwest towards the upper Memphis Plateau. It's beautiful. I mean, lots of sky traffic. You don't know how they keep it all straight. Again, kind of like Chicago. I don't know how anybody gets anywhere in that city. But you could see even...
I was up on that tower. There's a botanical garden up there.
Nice.
It's rather...
Yeah.
Talion seems very distracted. He's not really paying attention to what's going on.
Okay. Well,
Can I fly it? Can I drive?
No.
Perfect. I think that might have to be the note we leave it on then. Talion 1,000-yard stare out over the city of towers, and it goes.
If you zoom in on Talion's mouth, you can kind of see his lips form two words: Cassia and Kalina.
Yeah, perfect. I want to talk to you about them before next session. Oh, man. I hate to keep using his background, but
I just made so many little things that I'm using.
and he happened to put some of his backgrounds tied to Sharn. So, all right, yeah, we'll wrap it up there. A beautiful display of the city of Sharn. You guys are headed for a wealthy part, and we'll resume at Margrave University. Happy to be off the train. Glad we got through that.
Nice.
All right, perfect. Any questions, thoughts, concerns, anything loved or hated? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
That was fun. Thank you for running.
perfect. Yeah, I'm glad. I prepped about 21 pages worth of material, I feel like, before we started, and I got to the end of that at the end of our last session, and I'm like, so back to my more improvisational ways from here on out, I think. Perfect. Okay. Well, I have been your dungeon master, Ralph. I am on Twitter at Critthulu, CRITTHULHU. Thanks for joining us, Al.
Yes, I am at Big Al the Lawyer on Twitter, playing Talion Till Devandi. And if you want to talk to me, you can talk to me on Twitter at Big Al the Lawyer. Going over to you, Michael.
Hi, I'm Michael at the RPG Academy. Everything I do can be found there, except for Farm to Fable. I'll give a quick plug to my Smallville rewatch fan cast. So if you like the show Smallville, I'm rewatching every episode and doing a podcast about it. And
I've been Jules, playing Azure, and find me at This Nerdy Home on Facebook.
And Andy playing Gideon at Blackfall Press, Twitter and Facebook. We'll see you next time.
Yep. See you in a fortnight, everyone. Thanks.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Bye.